A needle pricked the queen's finger as she watched the winter snow fall. A single bead of red hit the white flakes. She whispered a wish for a child, with skin like snow, lips like berries, and hair like ebony. The wish took form, but the queen did not survive to see the girl grow. A year later, a new queen arrived, carrying a mirror that spoke only absolute truths. She stood before it daily, demanding to know who held the greatest grace in the land. The mirror always obeyed, confirming her status. Years passed, and the girl matured, her presence eclipsing everything around her. One morning, the ritual shattered. The queen asked her question, but the mirror offered a new, cold answer. It named the girl as the fairest. The queen slammed her hand against the glass, the sound echoing through the stone chambers. She paced the length of the hall, her jaw tight, before summoning the huntsman. She pointed toward the woods and gave a single brutal order. Take her to the forest, she commanded, and bring back her heart. The trap was set before the sun had fully risen. The huntsman marched until the trees grew thick and the light failed. He stopped at a clearing and drew his knife, the steel catching a sliver of sun. Snow White turned her face pale, and tears tracked through the dust on her cheeks. He watched her, his grip on the blade loosened. The air grew heavy with his decision. He shoved the knife into his belt and pointed toward the dense thicket. "Run!" he whispered, and never returned. She did not wait. She sprinted through the brambles, lungs burning, limbs whipping against the low branches. She ran until the forest floor leveled out into a small patch of moss. A tiny cottage sat in the center. She lunged for the door, pushed it open, and stumbled inside. 7 small chairs crowded a table. She ate a crust of bread from each plate and collapsed onto the 7th bed, drifting into a heavy, dreamless sleep. Hours later, the door creaked. The 7 dwarfs returned from the mines. They stepped inside, lanterns swinging, and stopped in a circle around the bed. They stared at the stranger, mouths parted in surprise. She woke to their shadows, sat up, and explained her flight. The dwarfs listened and nodded in unison. "Stay," they said, "but open the door to no one." The mirror did not lie. When the queen demanded the truth, the glass revealed the cottage deep in the woods. The queen's eyes narrowed. She turned away, her mind already carving a new path. She darkened her skin with soot and pulled a rough, nondescript wrap over her frame, masking her stature. She hiked to the cottage door. "Pretty ribbon, dear," she wheezed. Snow White opened the door. The queen lunged, pulling the silk tight around the girl's waist until she collapsed, gasping for air. The queen fled, believing the deed done. But the dwarfs returned, found the girl limp, and sliced the cord. She breathed again. The queen did not wait for news. She crafted a comb, coating the teeth in a slow-acting toxin. She returned to the cottage, slipped the comb into the girl's hair, and watched as the light left her eyes. Again, she retreated, a certain of victory. Again, the dwarfs arrived, pulled the comb away, and the girl stirred. The cycle of failure stoked the queen's rage into a white-hot flame. She retreated to her chamber, her hands trembling as she reached for a single ripe apple. She would not miss again. The queen sliced the apple, coating one side in colorless lethal extract. She left the other side pristine. She arrived at the cottage, posing as a weary traveler with a basket of fruit. Snow White peered through the gap in the door, hesitant. The queen bit into the white side, chewed, and
Roasting and
smiled.
frying
See, she
sausages.
murmured, it is perfectly safe. Snow White reached out and took the forbidden half. She bit into the red skin. The reaction was instantaneous. The apple fell from her hand, thudding against the floorboards. Her eyes rolled back and she crumpled, hitting the ground without a sound. The queen turned and walked away, her footsteps fading into the brush. When the dwarfs returned, they found the door ajar. They stood over the girl, calling her name, but she remained motionless. No breath stirred her chest. They tried to wake her, but her skin had turned cold. The room filled with the sound of their weeping. They spent the night crafting a container of glass and iron. They lifted her gently, carried her to the mountain ridge, and laid her inside the crystal coffin. The lid clicked shut, sealing her away from the world of the living. As the seasons began to turn, the rider crested the ridge, reined in his horse, and stopped. The prince dismounted, his gaze fixed on the shimmering box. He knelt, tracing the glass, and signaled for his men to lift it. As they navigated the white smoke, a serpent stumbled. The coffin tilted violently, hitting the ground with a sharp jar. The impact forced the lodged apple piece from the girl's throat. She coughed, sat up, and drew a ragged breath. The prince caught her hand, pulling her into the light. In the distance, the queen watched from the shadows of the hall. She saw the girl alive, realized her mirror had failed, and turned. She sprinted into the high mountains, vanishing into the grey mist as the kingdom erupted in sound. Bells rang across the valley. The hall filled with music that climbed toward the rafters. Snow White stood at the center, the prince at her side. As the doors swung wide, the long winter of the palace ended in that single moment. Shadows retreated, the air grew warm. Justice returned to the land, and the silence of the forest was finally replaced by the rhythm of a celebration that lasted for days.